Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today. It really is a thrill to see so many people connected in such troubled and uncertain time. So I can guarantee you that at the end of this session, at the end of this webinar, you'll be full of insights and good energy, positive energy. So my name is Clément from ByID, and today I'll be your host. Today's webinar marks the end of our October series of talks. 3 talks held in the last 3 weeks, focused on electric vehicles, EVs. And more precisely, today, our experts, our guests, will share their thoughts on what must be improved on the EV value chain, what innovation is needed on the EV value chain to increase consumer adoption. So we will first start with a 10-minute keynote by Deloitte. We'll follow with a 30-minute roundtable with our guests, and end with a 10-minute Q&A session where we will have the opportunity to ask questions to our speakers. And right after this 1-hour webinar open to all, we'll have a private workshop open to Mobility Club members only, where they will have the opportunity to further discuss and exchange with our guests.
Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. So Clément, I can confirm you, I can hear you well. I guess that Jean-Michel, but it seems that Jean-Michel and Adrien has some troubles. So my name is Nathalie Dorne, and the head of new business strategy and merger acquisition for Total EV Charge. So Total EV Charge, in a nutshell, is a business line that has been created last year within Total Marketing and Services branch, dedicating offshore for EV charging services. And I'm here on that position since 1 year, and prior to that position, I was head of strategy for gas, renewable, and power. So a good experience over the value chain of electromobility.
Thank you very much, Nathalie.
Thank you.
I see that Mona Levacher is also here. So Mona, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, perfect. So good morning everyone. My name is Mona Levacher. I work at Groupe PSA. I'm in charge of the offers for the electric vehicles. I work in a business unit which is really dedicated to electrification and development of the electric vehicles. I've been in the automotive industry for a very long time, and I love being around the cars, especially around the electric cars. And I'm very happy to be with you here, and nice to virtually meet all of you.
Thank you very much, Mona. And our third guest for today, Mr. Hui Zhang from NIO, is also connected. I'll let you introduce yourself, Mr. Zhang.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm representing NIO. So NIO is a kind of a global startup with a headquarters in China. And we are actually the first Chinese brand in the premium automotive segment. And myself, I have been in the car industry almost 20 years. I have been gone through different positions. Right now, I'm the vice president of the NIO Group, managing all the operations here in Europe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. So I see that Adrien is back and connected. So I will propose to Adrien to come back on stage so he can make his keynote. Adrien, can you hear us? And are you here? Adrien? It is always like that. We had 1 hour of technical test this morning. Everything worked very well. And it's always when it's live that it's not working. No, Adrien, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. So maybe what we can do is that we can jump in the round table, and I'm gonna ask you the questions, some questions. So you already introduced yourself. I'd like to ask you one thing. How do you explain such a strong acceleration around EV initiatives over the past months and years?
So Clément, sorry, to whom are you talking?
So actually, I'm gonna start the roundtable and ask you the questions we'll read, what we prepared. So we start, and we will see when Adrien and Jean-Pierre will be here.
All right. So I think I was maybe supposed to start.
Exactly.
If you can confirm me just that you can hear me well, and we can maybe start.
We hear you well. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah. So the starting point of that discussion was about the rising environmental awareness. I think that was very important to start by this, because from my perspective, the awareness is an absolute prerequisite for actions. And today we can probably say that everybody now can really witness the different signals we get from the climate change. So basically, I think also that was absolutely something that needs to happen so that we have a global consideration of those changes. So figures also talk by themselves, and they're showing I would say, the sense of urgency for action. If you take, for example, the European emissions, they represent around 30% of the global greenhouse gases emissions. And around 1/3 of those emissions are due to transportation. And under that transportation emissions, we can say also that the emission coming from passenger cars on the roads, it's around half of it. So it meaning you and me driving. So we are also, as an end consumer, a real key stakeholder in that transition. So obviously, today there is a real urgency to try to shift and to reduce the emissions. So if you look at the drivers and the recommendation of the International Energy Agency, we are supposed to reduce by 2/3 those emissions by 2050 to be able to manage and to tackle the global warming. What are the levers to achieve such reduction? There are three mainly. The first one is towards managing travel demand. So that's basically reducing the frequency, the distance of the trips. And you see that with the COVID crisis, we see we had really a good example on how, when reducing distance and trips, this has a significant impact on the emissions. We obviously do not. We are obviously for another way to manage, and of course, COVID crisis is really a pain. But I think that's important to have in mind that also we need to manage the way we are traveling. That's the first important lever. The second one is about improving the energy efficiency. So that comes through the fuel economies that can be done with the vehicles. So I think we have two car makers here with us, so they could explain how they have been working hard on this for the past years. And we have also stricter reduction emission standards for fuels. And as a matter of example, for the past 10 years, we have reduced 3 to 5 times the emissions, fine particles. But that's not enough still. There is a third important lever, which is the shift to sustainable and alternative fuels like electric vehicles. And this one is clearly also mandatory to achieve that roadmap. We, as Total, are also very committed to reduce the emissions. We have a net zero ambition by 2050. That's with a clear cornerstone around electrified transport and low carbon electricity. So now, how do you make the stakeholder put them in motion and taking actions? Mm-hmm. That's a complicated thing, because if you look at the pure economical point of view, the price parity for EVs, for example, will be probably met later on in this decade. So till now and so far, I think that regulation are here, and investment are here to support and to, I would say, launch this transition. Probably that's good to discuss a bit about how regulatory demand can impact the transition. And that's probably where I think Mona maybe have some insight to share with us also today.
Yes, thank you very much, Nathalie. Exactly, I was going to ask Mona the same question. As a car manufacturer, how do you explain this explosion of initiatives and around EVs?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Nathalie. This is exactly as what you explained, actually. So we always say that in the automotive industry, there are two drivers behind any change, any improvements, any modifications. So the two drivers, the first one is the customer expectations. And this is what Nathalie explained, actually. So today we know that more and more customers are sensitive, they are aware about the environment. And so this is what they're asking. So we need to adapt, actually, our products based on the requirements of the customer. The second point, the driver in the automotive industry is the regulation, actually. So the regulation has been there since long time, playing an important role. Why is it important, actually? Regulation, when we talk about the regulation, it reminds of the punishments, penalties, like if you consider as Nathalie mentioned, if you consider the target, like the OEMs today target for the CO2 per gram, etc. So this is the kind of the regulation which is a kind of more like punishment. But at the same time, the regulations are the facilitators and accelerators. And if you look, for example, before the 2010, regulation was a lot focused on the safety. Mm-hmm. So you see, as a result, the car are more kind of robust. The seatbelt design has been improved, reinforced. So you see, the trend was much more on the safety side. After 2010, it started being much centered around the emission. So there were like exhaust modifications and so on, and then it continued, and then the push, the kind of massive push toward the electrification. The thing is that we said that there is the punishment side, but also there is the facilitator side, because today, if you consider the electric vehicles, so the governments are giving the subsidies. So these subsidies are helping, actually, one part of the problem, which is the issue in regard to the price, because the electric cars are more expensive, actually, than the thermic ones. So there are the subsidies. The governments are helping the customers purchase the charging stations at home. So these subsidies, again, they help in solving one part of the issue related to the charging. And then there's this free parkings, there is the access to the city centers. So it's in both ways, and it's really a kind of accelerator. Mm-hmm. Regulations are helping, actually.
Okay, thanks very much. So I see, yes, that the regulatory side is one of the drivers. I'm going to ask you another question, Mona. We see that EV is thriving, but what are still the limits to large and broad EV adoption? So how can we adapt the value proposition to remove those barriers?
Yeah, Clément, I think that maybe this was also something I saw, that some slides at the beginning of the presentation, maybe this was also what you wanted to show at the beginning. I can for sure make a summary of these three topics that concerns our customers. So let's say today more and more customers are interested in purchasing an electric vehicle, okay? But then there are concerns around three major topics. The first one is the price. So, okay, electric is more expensive than thermic. The second concern is around what we call the range, the mileage, the autonomy. The customer is worried, what happens if I have a breakdown? What should I do? So these two are like more kind of like product aspect. And there is a third concern, which is the how. It's more actually switching from being a product to a kind of how, like service. So it's how am I going to charge my car?
Mm-hmm.
So this, the first two ones, like the price and the range, these are the things that we know in the industry. These are the things that improve with the time, with the economies of scale, with the mass production, etc., etc. So there's actually no. I don't have anything new to add on these two sides. So this is something that is getting better over time. But what is interesting here is the third point, actually. The customer talks about how. So this is new. So he said, how am I going to charge my car? And that's where I think which is kind of the main topics of today's conversations. I think both of my colleagues present here today, they would like to talk also about the value proposal and what we can do in this regard. This is kind of where the borders between the traditional product and service is disappearing. So this is where the question of new services happen, like what am I going to propose to my customer to answer to this how question. So this is where we need to propose something to customer which solves its problem, it's a service, and it's easy to use for a customer. I think so. I'm gonna talk more about this later, but I think my colleagues here, they would like to also talk about this part of how can we call it, the kind of innovative ecosystem around the electric.
Yes. So thanks very much, Mona. Having listed those 3 pain points, I would like to give the microphone to Mr. Zhang to hear his thoughts and how NIO is tackling those problems.
Thanks. Yeah, I think agree with Mona. There's several hurdles or roadblockers, like I call it a total cost of the ownership from the purchasing price until usage of the car. And also the second biggest is actually overall the ecosystem and in terms of the infrastructure, especially for the charging. And that is actually what NIO is experiencing and also approved a small success on the Chinese market. In fact, we offer 6 different possibilities for our customer to charge their vehicles in order to reduce their range anxiety, right? First of all, you have the AC box at home, and secondly, you have a DC charger as a destination charger, most of the case, and we also developed our own supercharger, which is deployed along the main motorways in China. And thirdly, is one of the USP of NIO is our battery swaps technology. So even taking the 350 kilowatt supercharger, which is provided by a German premium brand, it still takes you 25 minutes to have a SOC 80%. But if you go to a battery swap station, which takes the quickest in China, 3 minutes, which gives you a much quicker, a much better user experience compared even to a combustion engine. If you go to a gasoline station and take off the gun, get the gasoline, and go to the cash desk to pay, it takes you 7 to 10 minutes, right? And last not the least, we also offer simple power mobile vehicles, which help our customer in some extremely situation, like you don't find a charging point, you don't find a swap station, but we will drive the power bank to you and give you 10 minutes charge. You have another 100 kilometer range until you reach the next possibility, right? I think that's, we call it power solution. And this power solution, first of all, in the last 5 years, was purely built with NIO own financial strength. But of course, we wish that we can make a good example for the whole entire industry. For example, colleagues from PSA can also make their car engineered with a battery swap, which can help to resolve the issue much better. And all the last I want to add on, what I think we haven't touched, is actually not only from the regulatory, that the government tell the customer why you have to drive electrical car, because otherwise the car maker will be punished with a penalty of CO2 emission. And why NEO is established is purely because of the new living style of our customer in the 21st century. It's a mobile internet changed our lifestyle, how we live, how we work, how we charge our car. And one of the really purpose of NEO is to improve and create very much a better user experience, which was not the case in the last 130 years for the automotive industry.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. It seems that...
Yes. Great, great.
Our Deloitte friends are here, so I will let Mr. Zhang finish his details, and then I'll give you the microphone, Michel.
All right. Oh, Clement, so far, actually, I think that's my last point. To create a new user experience will help us transforming the industry, redefine the user experience in the purely mobile internet age. So that is the key, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now I will let Jean-Michel take over from now. Jean-Michel, are you here?
Yeah, so we invited this new moderation approach, which is completely seamless, right? There is no moderator at all. Yeah, so let's jump in on this charge options, and we really think this is fundamental there to adapt the approach we have regarding energy to the EV world, and this is adapting the charging system to the different use and the different needs. And probably I think it's interesting to have the two views, the view of the energy provider and the view of the car makers. So the energy provider, Nathalie, maybe you can provide us a broad view of the stakes, and then focus on the public charging. And I know Mona has some elements on PSA new strategy for private charging, so I will let her intervene on this after you.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. So yes, basically, and that's a good transition also from my colleague from NEO. I think that we're fully in line with the fact that with electric mobility, electric vehicles will charge in many different locations, with very different expectations depending on the users or the owners. It's also very different from the distribution channel we know as a traditional energy provider. So as a matter of example, the at-home or at-work charging. So what is private? And I leave this to Mona later on. But it's 80% of the energy needs. So it's massive. It's something which is under control and more secure than what is today the public charging. But I will try now to stress out what are the key issues for public charging. Public charging, so public available charge points, for example, in the streets, on shopping malls or public car parks, it's around 10% of the energy needs. And we have also another way another type of demand for rapid charging in urban and highway service station, which represent another 10% of the energy needs. And we are convinced in total that those public charge points issues are really a way to also lock down the to unlock, sorry, the system for the charging and to boost the EV adoption, because it treats and it addresses one of the key barriers for EV adoption, which is the anxiety to find charging services, and also for more rapid charging. It reassures the user for their long drives. So here in total, we started to address those issues for the long drive and long haul distance. We have some experience now with HPC stations. We know that customers are staying as an average in a service station on the motorway 20 to 30 minutes. They are charging roughly 20 kilowatt hour, which means 160 kilometers of autonomy. So we build up a plan where we sure that we are trying to really give a network, a reliable network for those drivers. And we have a plan to pave main roads and corridors within Western Europe with 300 service stations that will be equipped with 50 kilowatt and 175 kilowatt high power charging points. And it really addresses that point. The other also area where we probably also move on with rapid charging is really urban area, where we have similar needs for rapid charging. And we have another also a plan of more than 200 service stations. So that's really critical, I think, to unlock the system. So that's the first point. We also think that there is a need for normal charging or standard charging, I would say, in public area. We have good example. Recently, we won and we are working with the Amsterdam region, where we are implementing 20,000 charge points. Here, really the key use for the key use case is for residential charging. People there do not have easily access to their own private home charging. So there is a need clearly for residential. And so it requires a good planning of the infrastructure and a good assessment of the needs of in that case, you don't need rapid charging. You just need normal charging. And it's also our task and our duty to ensure that we are making the right appropriate investment for the right use. Last but not least, another example, we recently also bought the largest network in London with South London. Here we have a kind of mix of needs. There are needs for also residential charging or normal charging, but also rapid charging for opportunistic charging. And again, I think all in all, what is important is trying to unlock the system and providing the right infrastructure for the right needs. So maybe that would be also good to complement that view with the private charging, I think.
I do think that to have the other view, both on the car maker side and the private side. So maybe Mona, you can explain how you envision it from a PSA perspective, and what are the key elements of your approach regarding private charging?
Okay. So you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you for that. I would like to get back quickly on what Mr. Zhang had mentioned in regard to the user experience. Actually, it's very, very important. I mean, today you cannot expect the customer to just buy a product and then you ask the customer to go get the service from somewhere else. I mean, the customer experience has really changed. And this is, I mean, the experience with buying online, the experience with the mobile phones, etc. It's modifying everything. So today we have to also propose something to the customer that answers to this kind of requirements. And as Nathalie mentioned, it's in regard to the electric car, the topic of charging the car at home or at workplace, it's a huge topic. I mean, we say up to 90% of the charge is done at home or at the workplace. So the customer is really concerned. So this is what we call actually the private charging. meaning that when the times that customer can charge at home or at work. So basically, what we did at PSA Group was to develop an approach. We call it a one-stop shop approach. So the way it works is very simple. I mean, once the customer arrives at the dealership, she finds everything that she needs in regard to the car, in regard to the charging solution, and the installation, and the transparent prices. So the customer arrives at some point, is at the dealership, so she gets everything there. It's done, it's finished. So no need further to go find someone to buy the charging solution from, no necessity to go find someone to install it for them. With our partners, actually, and that's also a key point in regard to the partnerships today, partnerships between the product providers and service providers. So with our partnerships, actually, and our partners, we have created a kind of ecosystem which facilitates the life of the customer. So he or she can have access to everything at one place. And we also, we talked about the respect for the environment and also the customer experience, the digital. So what we did also was that in designing this customer journey, the key points, the key touch points, which are the dealerships, the customers, and our partners who provide the charging solutions and the installations. So we have connected everyone through the digital tools. So actually, there's no more paperwork. Customers at the dealership, everything is done digital. When the customer leaves the dealership, she knows that she gets the car, she gets the charging solution, she gets the installation, everything is done. So I think that's very important to maybe somehow discuss a bit further or open this topic of conversation about the breaking the silos and breaking the borders between the product sector and the service sector, because at the end of the day, what the customer wants is a product, a service, and the ease of use. So this is what we all need to focus on, saying that in the eyes of the customer, this is what I need to provide. And that's why we need to go further than the how do you say, the traditional borders, and create the partnership which can make this happen for our customers.
I think, yeah, thank you, Mona. It provides a very good transition to the next point that I wanted to mention, which is, of course, the partnership. But before going to that, maybe Mr. Zhang, you can provide us some more detail on an alternative option to charging that you developed with NIO, which is battery swapping. This is a very innovative approach, and in India, in China, there are some experience there. Can you provide a bit more context and elements about this approach and how NIO is envisaging it?
Wait, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So battery swap station is actually fully developed by NIO ourselves. We deployed so far in China already 170 battery swap stations, including those in the city center, but also those along the motorways. What we did is end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, we deployed every 200 kilometers along the motorway a battery swap station. And so that we basically built the infrastructure by ourselves. Secondly, with a battery swap station, it's a fully automated, it's a 540 kilograms heavy battery pack, can be fully automated swapped within 3 minutes. And thirdly, combined with a battery swap station, NIO just launched end of August another innovative business concept or business approach called BaaS. battery as a service. Actually, for the French market, everybody knows about Renault Zoe battery leasing. But because the battery is the leasing share is still quite not high in France. But in China, with battery swap, we provide our user 3 possibilities. Means if you drive the car, you can charge the car, you can swap the car, but you can also upgrade the car, especially on the battery pack. In the way of that you can change your battery pack during your leasing period from a lower capacity to a higher capacity, so that we can really realize the on-demand usage, and so that actually we help also to reduce the CO2 emission definitely, and increase the efficiency having an electrical vehicle. Thank you. That's it. Can you hear me? Everybody seems.
Yes, Mr. Zhang,
we can
hear you.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Yeah, so maybe we can jump now on the partnership. So I mean, Mona mentioned an excellent point about partnership, which is if you want to have a seamless. Speaking about seamless today is a bit of a joke, but anyway, if we want to have a seamless customer experience, we need to go beyond the barrier of the traditional vision of the transport and car industry and move in a mobility world where different providers provide the entire service range working in partnership with others. So, but the other aspect is, of course, the investment. You also need to share the investment because the investments are huge in terms of technology and infrastructure. So the 2 reasons for partnerships are first, seamless customer experience, and the other one is, of course, investment in infrastructure and technology. Maybe there are 2 different types of partnership. To make it simple, you can have different industrial and service company working together, or you can have industrial companies or private companies working with public institution and local government. And I guess because local government is playing an increasing role in the electrical vehicle world compared to the traditional combustion engine world. So maybe, Nathalie, you can give a bit of your view on how you should work and collaborate with the public institution and the local government, and I'll let Mona and Mr. Zhang then explain about the private partnership that can exist to provide this one-stop shop.
Yes, thank you, Jean-Michel. Yes, for sure. So maybe for that session, I'll take 2 examples, right? So from an industrial and energy point of view, so we are obviously also interested of the relationship between electromobility and use of electricity. And for this, we form and we've been working under the Avenir project. So I'll take two examples just to highlight how the way we were working on this. So the Avenir project, which is led by Enedis, this project is an alliance between private partners. It's 10 partners, private partners, and also institutional like Enedis, EDF. And also regulatory bodies, right? So this project is aiming really to assess the interaction between the public electricity grid, the charge points, and electric vehicles. And the experimentation scope is really trying to cover both technology, but also economical model and sociological and regulatory aspects. So that's very interesting, because with that project and with the involvement of institutional bodies and partners like Enedis, we are able to do some real condition experimentation for charge points and their integration with the grid. And we are also working, I would say, intensively also the technology side of this project, trying to improve the vehicle-to-grid business case. So in that case, that's pretty much technology oriented, but also, and that's for sure very important also for Total, and even more for a branch like marketing and services, where we have really a strong customer centricity. So we also joined recently another alliance, which is in that case more private, but this is the Charge Up Europe Alliance, which now is working clearly to push for an infrastructure rollouts that really that really works with the consumer needs, that keeps the pace with the uptake of the EVs, and that provide a really seamless, that aim to provide a seamless charging experience. And this part is important because we know the pain point of the charging for the EV drivers, and need to have a different card, different application, and so on. So one of the aim of that alliance is clearly also to work on the user experience and try to build up open markets supported by open standard and protocol that will really ease the use of EV. And last but not least, also we are also with that alliance trying to remove also market barriers, because we feel that we need to have a kind of unicity of experience and charging experience throughout Europe. So we try to work also to remove those barriers from the grid or data sharing or regulation perspective. So I think there's a lot of things to be done in many aspects with alliances. And I think that, as Mona also mentioned, and Mr. Zhang also mentioned, there are many different views on EV charging. And I think that we absolutely need the discussion with the different stakeholders to ensure that at the end of the day, the end consumer will find a really appealing charging experience and will move to EV driving.
Thank you, Nathalie. Mona, maybe you want to describe your view as a car maker in this partnership approach. Probably there's some stakes also to share investment.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And I think what Nathalie explained was very, very comprehensive, actually, about the reality, actually, of the situation and the innovative approaches that our partners like Total they are doing to answer actually to these complexities. If you want to talk about the for example, I come back on the question of the private charging, and I'm also looking at the questions which are actually asked at the right side of the screen. So I'm trying to answer at the same time answering to some of these questions which are related to my field. The question of, partnerships and creating the values, it's a kind of, we cannot just answer it by one sentence. It comes in different categories and type of partnerships. What I can say is that when you go through this new era of partnerships, which you are partnering with someone doing completely different stuff from you, like you are very good at making a product and you are partnering with someone which is very good at providing a service. There's a whole new story, actually. First one is that, as it's also mentioned in the questions, is that how you make money, because for example, in the case of the private charging, what we did is that now we have more than like 20 partnerships around Europe with the providers of the charging solutions, say the wall boxes, and with the installation partners, because the wall box is we don't recommend installing it on your own. It's for us the safety part. So we need to be sure that not only that we provide a good quality product, but we also provide a service which take care of installing it in a safe manner. So here you see already 3 different actors are involved. So let's say what we do today is that through this partnership, we provide this charging solutions to the customer, and then we provide the installation services to our customers. So it's like every one of us is actually very strong at doing one part of this customer journey. So what we did was to work on the business models, which everyone brings up their best in terms of expertise, and then based on this, you work and then you define the customer journey. What is very tricky and important in this kind of new ecosystems is to how you create the link between all the parties and how do you all speak the same language. So this for me is a part that the digital helped a lot, because we wanted our customers to because previously, you know, when you buy electric car, okay, at the dealership, you are told to, okay, so you get your car and just get this piece of paper, and then you go somewhere, someone there, and you ask for a charging solution. Don't forget, just do this. So we wanted to put an end to all of this. So that's why we had to make everyone talk to each other, like our touch points to talk to each other. And then this is where the digital helped us. And we know that the digital developments are less costly than creating the infrastructures, and they're also much more easier to work with. So for me, you need to get different partners, which each one of them is good at one part of this ecosystem. You make it possible that they talk to each other. You use digital to make it simple and less costly. And then you do the monitoring all over the process of the customer journey to make sure that at every touch point, everything is working and everyone has the same level of knowledge. So this is basically what I wanted to mention about this kind of, let's call the new customer experience journeys that we are proposing.
And talking about new customer journey and partnership, maybe you would like to have the conclusion note on this point, because you're proposing a new business model, a new approach toward the experience in electric vehicles. So you may also need to work with partners to provide this alternative experience.
In terms of the user experience based on the digital touchpoint, what our experience accordingly is we try to manage all by ourselves. Of course, we are partnering in terms of leverage the resource of the third party charging provider, like we are working with the State Grid in China, who is operating over 200,000 different charging pile in all over China. But in terms of the digital experience, it's all managed by NIO, and also backboned by NIO, which is based on our holistic from CRM to ERP until our after-sales service. And beyond that, NIO Power provides also a cloud-based algorithm and also the safety monitoring system for the vehicle and for our user. You heard me.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Zhang. I mean, we will probably let the floor for a few minutes to Adrien to present the few elements we wanted to present initially. I mean, it was an introduction. It will be a conclusion, but I guess it's useful to have these elements in mind.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm very sorry for the technical issues that we've had so far. But the good thing is that we're here today. I know that I only have 3 minutes instead of the 15s initially planned, so I'll try to go fast. But just to introduce myself, I'm a manager here in Paris in the automotive practice, looking at all of these wonderful issues that were just discussed by the panel. So maybe to just go quickly. Ooh, doesn't seem like I can switch the slides. There we go. To go quickly on the 3 main things that I'd like to highlight today. First is to look at the consumer's main concerns that rise from the switch towards electromobility. So a lot of them have been already discussed by the panel, but we'll just fly over them to quickly move on to the next one, which is really looking at the reality and the future trends that we've gathered up in the global automotive consumer study that we actually performed this year back in early 2020. And then if we have maybe 30 seconds at the end, I'd like to touch a point on ways to adapt business models to ensure profitable growth in this transition towards electromobility, which is not always a given as we just discussed. So going up to the first concern, if we want to reach a mass market adoption of electric vehicles, of course, the offer has to be adapted for it. Today, what we see on the market, it starts in Europe with the Renault Zoe, which is still pretty expensive if you don't take into account the different government incentives that you can receive for it. And then it shoots all the way up as you increase the size of these vehicles, going towards premium or even sports premium, preventing a mass market adoptions. I know that there's been some recent announcements, but today the truth is it's still maybe not accessible to everyone. If we're looking now at the next concern is of course the limited driving mileage for kind of a similar type of car. Today you fuel up and you're good to go for 1,000 kilometers. So how can you convince people to actually go past this and to invest into electromobility when driving mileages are in the newer generation, somewhere between 300 to 350 kilometers, depending on how you drive and the driving condition. So this is, again, kind of a blocking point that we keep hearing about why people now want to wait for the next generation or want to maybe push back a little bit their switch towards electric vehicles. The next one is the one we just discussed, of course, is the charging capabilities. It's something that is an issue on twofold. The first one is on the network. A lot of people are just scared of being stranded somewhere in the rural area and not being able to charge up. And the second one, of course, is the charging capacity and the speed at which you can actually charge up your car. Going on to maybe another topic that we're more used to look at with the cell phones that we have in our pockets or the printers that we have at home is as technology advances, in 2 years' times, whatever you have in your pocket is not going to be anywhere as close as to what the market will offer in terms of cell phones. And so people now think about the same way for their cars. They want, since they see technology moving forward so fast with batteries, they fear that the residual value of whatever they might buy today will tank compared to what will be offered in a little while. So that's also preventing people from making this switch. Moving on to the different trends and reality that we've seen actually in our study on accessibility. One thing that's actually quite wonderful is we see over 2 years, people actually have less and less concerns about this price premium that we just discussed. In fact, 47% of consumers are actually willing to pay a premium to get an EV. And this really shows this increased attractivity in vehicles in the recent years that is a very positive move to get towards this transitions to electromobility. The next one is the driving mileage. Of course, that's the big one. The majority of the consumers that we surveyed, of course, they want more than 200 miles or about 320 kilometers range for their cars. But what we see with today's offer, when we know that people only drive 50 kilometers and that the battery technology is actually moving fast, it's getting closer to capturing about 50% of consumers' expectations. So again, we're getting very close to what people want and need. So this is a very positive sign also that is showing that this transition is ready to happen. The next one is on charging capabilities. This is we just discussed with the panel. This network is getting tighter. We see a lot of different partnerships that are being made, and also we see a lot of superchargers that are allowing people to charge their vehicles, because 50% of the consumers that we've interviewed are willing to wait at least 30 minutes for their cars to be charged. And today this is actually getting close to it. With a supercharger, you can get 80% of your charging capacity up to 80% or so. And so this allows people to go on the journeys that they used to go to with their ICE vehicles. So again, for the adoption, we actually are getting close to having an offer that doesn't change people's current ways of consuming mobility. And then the next one that I like to look at is kind of the snowball effect that we're seeing that is actually pretty exciting, is the total cost of ownership, which is now the way people look at their vehicles. If we look at government regulations that are being imposed on ICE cars, we see prices increasing due to taxes and usage restrictions. We see also the residual values of their cars shooting down, and so therefore the amount that you have to finance is actually getting larger and larger, which means that the total cost of your ICE is shooting up. However, the opposite thing is happening for electric cars, where we see that the TCO is going down thanks to actually the lower cost of batteries nowadays, thanks to a government incentive, thanks to actually a lower maintenance and lower fuel cost. And so this is actually something to transition, as I know I have 30 seconds left, into business models. Now that we see that we have a TCO-driven kind of a new type of mobility with electric cars, we also see the way people consume their mobility is switching from ownership to usage. By 2025, we see that there will be actually more than 50% and closer to 60% of all contracts will be operating lease contracts, which means that then the captive, the OEM, or the fleet manager will remain the owner of the assets and will be able to actually make their asset live through multiple cycles of their cars. And this is also something that we can imagine for suppliers such as tire manufacturer. You can think of them making partnerships with OEMs so that their tires are also sold by the kilometers or for usage base and not necessarily just sold by four. So we see a lot of new players and also established one making new offers, but the business is switching now to kind of go through as many life cycle of the car as you can, so that as the owner of the car, the OEM can actually also have a much stronger grasp on its residual value and make it live a lot longer and extract as much profitability as possible. With all of that, again, I'm very sorry for the technical difficulty that we've had this morning. Please do contact me, do call me if you have any questions. I know that the team will send you the presentations and also the different studies. We have this global consumer study that has a lot more numbers and charts that I care to show this morning about the future of mobility and electric vehicles. So do contact us if you have any question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Adrien. Thank you. So our webinar has reached its end, at least for the public part of it that was open to all. First, I'd like to apologize for the technical issues. It always happened at the worst moment. The discussion continues for Mobility Club members. We meet again on Zoom, and you've all received the invite and the link a few hours ago. As per the Q&A, we could not tackle them today, we will work with our guests on written answers that we will share with all of you who attended today. And before we close this stream, I'd like to thank our guests for taking the time to share their thoughts with us. It's very valuable, and thank you for that. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, for attending. I think we picked at more than 100 people, so that was a great success. Stay tuned, because we'll very soon share the invitations for our November series of talks that will focus on corporate mobility. And I can already tell you that the next talk will be on November the 4th. So that's it. Mobility Club members, we meet on Zoom in a few minutes. And for the others, for everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. Take good care of yourself and your relatives, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.